So for anyone coming on, just a little exploration and inner exploration of coming here into presence, and then just exploring in your own experience, not in your mind, what takes you away, what brings you back. It's really important to do these experiments in our own selves, in our own experience, so we know I don't have the answers for you. Any question that you have is answered within in your own direct experience. So I might be a guide or something you read or whatever, but the answer comes from your own direct experience. Like I can tell you to drop a story 1,000,000 times, but it doesn't happen until something inside shifts. So that's trustworthy, your own experience in the moment, this that's here. We think of this here as sacred space when we gather. So the Hindi term that's used is satsang. It's used in Buddhism and other traditions. It means association with truth. Sang, sangha, community, and sat means truth. So we come here in truth. And also, for me anyway, it feels like sacred space. We speak the truth here. And it's also safe space because everything is welcomed here. Everything is welcomed here. Everything belongs. Everything is included. And why? Because that's what consciousness is always doing anyway. This awareness that is outside, beyond our thoughts. It's in our thoughts, but it's also beyond our thoughts, our feelings. It's this kind of ineffable sense of aliveness, this vibration of life, vibration of living, of being alive, prior to all forms. This energetic vibration is always, never resists anything, never, can't, because it's of itself. So when we bring our body, heart, mind, emotions into alignment with deep acceptance, we invite in the possibility of dissolving separation. So say a feeling comes up and you don't like it, you don't want it, you resist it, not this again, this shouldn't be here, I'm afraid if I look at this, so I need to avoid or deny or get numb to this feeling. That's all of the mind, that's separation. I mean, you can feel the separation, I don't want this, right? In consciousness, it's this alive awareness, even to that, I don't want this, it's saying, okay, that resistance can be here too. So we can live in those mental concepts, in the separation, and we know what that's like. So just for a moment, feel into your experience of living in separation. If you have a problem, if you think you have a problem, you live in separation. If you, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just, it's part of the exploration then. I mean, we all do it to some degree or another. And we all have in the past for sure. I mean, that's kind of how we're taught as we grow up. And living in separation means we have to be on guard. We're not safe. We have to make sure that we try our best to get safe. We start pleasing others, avoiding all those strategies of the human life. That's all about separation. And then here we have the amazing, absolutely just blessed opportunity to explore something different. And the something different has always been here, always. It's just not realized, not known. This possibility of peace and freedom and happiness and heart connection, ease, just relaxed ease in life, flow, always, always here, and has always been here, whether it's been known by you or not. And that's the amazing opportunity to realize that, to know that, and not to awaken forever, forget about that. It's really about this moment, here, now. What is your reality in this moment? Are you caught in stories and mind and frustration and lack, inner critic? That's separation, that's believing the stories and how they define you as a separate entity. And then we get sick and tired of that at some point, or we just have a sense that there's something more. For me, it was both. I got sick and tired of it, and I just knew this. I said to myself, this can't be what this life is. There has to be something other than this. And there is. Yeah. And whether you get a sense of that for, whether you live in that or you just kind of are playing with what is that, where is that, it doesn't matter where you are on this path at all. But what does matter is persistence and curiosity and openness and this willingness to go to all places, including the shadow places in our psychology, in our minds, in our emotions. And why? Because consciousness always includes everything. Resistance will breed more resistance. Resistance breeds more resistance. And then we get that spark or that taste or that just even imagining, there's something other than this, something else, something free, something joyful. And maybe I have a right to know that. If you think you don't have a right to know that, that's a conditioned pattern from your past that's coming up. I don't deserve this freedom. It's not for me. It's for someone else, not me. I don't deserve peace. I don't deserve to feel good in my life. That's an old pattern. Not true. Absolutely untrue. Because you're like one, not even a millimeter, you're so close to knowing this truth that you can't even see it. That's until you can. So just reflect in what comes up for you around this conversation so far. The patterns are old news. The identities of not good enough, not deserving, not for me, this happiness is not for me. And maybe even fear comes with that, like fear of not being who you think you are, because then who are you? How do you live? What do you do? What's going to happen to your life? There's fear around that, but also excitement. So physiologically speaking, fear and excitement are very similar. So when you feel an activation, we might call it fear, or when you feel a very similar kind of physical activation, it's also excitement. If you've been living in the old stories and you're interested in living outside of them and in knowing who you are outside of those stories, You are going into new territory. It feels new in your experience. It's abiding and ever present and has always been there and all of that. But if you don't know that, it feels very new. And new can feel fresh and exciting and interesting and like, I want this, I want to know this. And it can also be scary. And honoring all of that. Nothing is wrong. There's no wrong way to be. And to know that, we bring compassion to everything, this like deepest heartfelt acceptance to everything. Even the identity of, I'm a piece of crap. We bring some understanding and compassion to that, because knowing that's not true, that somehow that was, that landed in you. Maybe someone told you, or maybe you had to believe that to survive in your childhood. That becomes a strategy then, to think that you're less than or not good enough or worse. I mean, the ways we speak to ourselves sometimes can be very, very, very harsh, very painful. It's not natural. It's normal, feels normal. It's not our natural being. No. So we go back to our birthright, which is to be free, relaxed, open, curious, receptive, loving, available for connection. Separation derives from relationship, right? It's most likely relationship with other people, and also our relationship with our own experience. So if we are separate from our own experience, meaning denying different parts of our experience, we will feel that sense of separation and alienation and loneliness and inner pain. So we can explore, eventually there's not two, right? So we're not in relationship. In the purest truth of everything, we're not in relationship with anything because there's no separation. But we are, in relationship. We're in relationship to our feelings. If you believe a story, you are in relationship with that story, believing that it's true about you or other people or the world. And certainly we can be in relationship with other people. And we are, as humans, infants, toddlers, young kids, we grow up in relationship. Because as humans, we need to. We have a long period of time where we're dependent on our caregivers before we can live independently as humans. Other animals, it varies, but we have quite a long time where we need to be dependent on caregivers. So we're in relationship. And we want to survive, right? We have this instinct to survive. And sometimes we need to betray ourselves, betray our truth in order to survive. And that's where we take on these false stories of not being good enough, of not being able to trust. And then we have the capacity to explore these stories and question them. Is that true? This thing my inner critic is telling me that I am and how I need to be, is that actually true? We get to question that. Because if we don't, we just take it for granted, right? We just assume that whatever our minds are telling us is the case. The fear reaction that we have in our bodies, it must be true if it goes unquestioned. So we have this possibility of questioning pretty much anything our minds tell us about ourselves, about other people, about the world. And to do these explorations, these little experiments within, it's really supportive to do those in community like this, to know you are not alone. You are not alone. You can't do it alone. Problems develop in relationship, solutions develop in relationship. And you're in relationship to everything. If you have an addiction, you're in relationship to the substance or whatever you're addicted to. If you have a physical illness, you're somehow in relationship. Like there isn't really anything objective out there. It's how we hold what our reality is. What is your relationship to your mind? What is your relationship to your physical body? Like take stress for an example. If your mind's telling you, you got to keep going, you got to do the next thing and accomplish and, push yourself. What is your relationship to that story? You can be in it and, wear yourself down, being the servant of the mind, doing what the mind tells you that you need to be doing. That's certainly an option. Some of us know that pattern. Or we can be here as this abiding presence and notice, there's that pushy achievement story. There it is. Okay. And then you have a choice. You don't have to do what it's telling you to do. It's a huge choice. Hugely important if you're interested in happiness. So think for a moment what one of your primary stories is. What are your greatest hits about what your mind tells you about yourself? That you're unworthy, that you can't, that you need to, seeking for approval. And see it as a story that runs in your mind. And what is your relationship to that story? And play with, be in the story. And we all know what that's like. So that's a relationship. That's believing it. That's taking it as God's word. That story is true. I have to go by that story. And there's the possibility of taking a breath, getting some space, grounding in your body. And then from this more grounded place with your feet on the floor, being here, then what is your relationship to that story? And feel into the freedom that comes that's available to you when you don't have so much interest in the story. You're not making it your abiding, goal or benchmark or need to be that way. And then we're in extreme flexibility, openness, not knowing. I mean, this is really a big point. If you stop believing your stories, you're in not knowing. That's the nature of it. And it's a beautiful shift that happens to not know. And in the not knowing, you're fully present to what is. The only way to know is that you know in the moment. That's where the knowing is. So you can spend a lot of time in projecting into the future. Should I or shouldn't I, or what's going to happen, or what's going to, how is this going to play out, or what am I going to need to do? And that's a fear-based mind trying to prepare. But the absolute reality of it is we know when we know. And I see that over and over in my life. I take my hands off the wheel. I go, oh, what's this going to be like? Or how is this going to play out? And I catch it, right? Because the mind does that. That's normal. And my answer is, I don't know. And then I just kind of wait. I don't do anything. I don't try to find the answer. I just wait. And it's like uncanny how it just unfolds. And the answers come, not on my timetable, but on the timetable of the unfolding. So I've learned to notice when this I need to know happens, and to just kind of just totally let it go and let myself not know, be in the not knowing, and let the unfolding happen. It's a very practical, it's how I actually live, a very practical way of living. Mind, body, emotions, just kind of go back in and get a sense, like inside out, receiving of this moment. Feeling into the truth that everything belongs here, now, in this space we create together.